This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us on CBN NewsWatch for this special New Year's Eve edition of the program. I'm Ephraim Graham. CBN News is committed to bringing you stories that matter to you. So today, we're taking a look back at some of the work we've done over this past year. Edward Durr is a truck driver from New Jersey who beat the state's top Democrat earlier this month to win a seat in the New Jersey Senate. CBN's David Brody spoke with the underdog who managed to take out the leader of the pack.
Hello, my name is Edward Durr. I'm running for New Jersey State Senate. I've lived here all my life, raising my 3 kids.
Edward Durr will be the first to tell you he is a simple man living a simple life as a truck driver. That changed, however, because he and other voters in New Jersey got tired of politics as usual. Durr took on Steve Sweeney, the state's top Democrat.
I think they've woken up because the people sent a clear message Tuesday night that they're tired of being pushed around. And I was just fortunate enough to be the person, so to speak, the tip of the spear.
He pulled off the miracle with limited resources. Incredibly, he spent less than $200 in the primary, half of it on Dunkin' Donuts. Overall, he spent a paltry $5,000 or so.
I think I showed them that you don't have to be a millionaire to run for office. If you just get out and do the work, if you get a good amount of people behind you who support you and believe in you, things can change.
Even former President Donald Trump reached out after Durr's big victory.
You take care. Anything I can do, you let me know, okay? Let me know.
Thank you very much, sir. And you know you can call me at any time.
So how did Durr do it? A bad economy helped, but the truck driving candidate really capitalized on what voters saw as government overreach. It became an issue of liberty.
Certain businesses are forcing people to wear masks, where certain stores you can go in and out. I'm against government intrusion in anybody's personal life. That's where I stand.
And it also hit close to home as he saw families in his South Jersey area being affected daily.
I've always known that families matter to everybody. Everybody cares about their family. They'll lay down their life for their brother, their sister, their son, their daughter. It doesn't matter. Family is the most important thing.
And that leaves Edward Durr as a true citizen legislator, a concept our founders would applaud. As for the truck driver himself, he doesn't plan to stick around too long.
I don't see any real plans as future politics. I am 58 years old, so I'm certainly not going to be here 30 years. But as long as the people feel I'm doing a good job, and as long as I keep earning their trust, I'll keep working for them as hard as I can. My goal is to fix New Jersey.
We'll see if he can work a miracle there, too. David Brody, CBN News.
Parts of our country seeing fights at school board meetings making national headlines. So what can be done to tone these out-of-control meetings? We're going to take a look when we come back. Stay with us. Critical race theory, transgender policy, sexually explicit material in libraries, and mask mandates. These are all hot button issues that have unleashed a national argument from parents' rights movement spurred on by the recent Virginia election. So is it helping to lower the temperature at potentially volatile school board meetings is the question. Senior national affairs correspondent Heather Sells is on this story.
I think people are feeling out of control.
School board member Colleen Leary is well aware of the tension in her community of Chesapeake, Virginia. She says while many more parents are attending board meetings, they're usually respectful yet very passionate.
I pray before the meetings, because the flesh part of me sometimes wants to go, but then I have to remember that these children are their most valuable possession. And they love their kids, and they want what's best for their kids.
In the Virginia election, parents concerned about education demonstrated their political power, with 1/4 of the voters calling critical race theory their top issue. More than 2/3 of them voted for Glenn Youngkin.
Virginia public schools are out of control.
Political action committees like the American Principles Project helped feed that momentum, with more than 6 million watching their online ads. And it's not just Virginia.
The 1776 PAC backed conservative school board candidates in 7 states and won 3/4 of its targeted races.
We started with just 2 chapters here in Florida.
The parents' rights organization Moms for Liberty started in January and already has 60,000 members and 152 chapters spread across 33 states. It all points to an emerging movement that radio host Eric Erickson describes as organic and bipartisan.
But if you look at the demographics and the polling on this, there are a lot of liberal parents as well who are deeply concerned about school closures, mask mandates for children.
Leary and fellow board member Harry Murphy see this growth of parental involvement as a positive step.
Quite honestly, I think it's great. They want to know what's happening. Whatever side they fall down on, they want to know what's going on in the schools.
But some meetings across the country are getting out of hand, leading the Attorney General to ask the FBI to get involved. Murphy sees it as inappropriate.
I think that was strictly a political move.
Pastor Sam Rodriguez, a former Trump faith advisor, believes it's dangerous political targeting.
I see the actions of General Merrick Garland, the Department of Justice, as an egregious act exhibiting totalitarian, authoritarian inclinations that more look like, smell like the vestiges of communist Russia, the Soviet Union, and what the Chinese Communist government implements today.
National security expert Dr. Paul Miller, who has worked for both the Bush and Obama administrations, says it's appropriate to investigate threats.
To be very clear, threatening violence is is a threat of terrorism when you're threatening to attack people over a difference of public policy. And so, yes, law enforcement has a role to play here, whether it's state or federal. Depends upon which statute we're talking about.
Why are you doing this?
He and other national security experts are closely watching for domestic extremism.
There's just a lot of agitation and a lot of frustration out there, and people are feeling greater permission to act outside the bounds of what we used to consider normal political activity.
Polls like this from the American Enterprise Institute show that close to 3 in 10 Americans support political violence in certain circumstances.
I will not sit down. I won't comply.
Security experts express concern that extremists may try to recruit those with legitimate grievances, like parents. And they want to prevent the potential for more political violence, such as the 2017 congressional baseball shooting, pipe bombs mailed to members of Congress, and January 6th.
Could there be violence at state capitals? Could there be violence at polling booths at the next elections? Could there be violence at campaign events over the next year? I think those are all possibilities, and you can't protect them all. And so that makes me very worried that we may see some of this stuff.
For now, Erickson thinks the Biden administration might soften its stance on schools following Youngkin's win and the role of education in the race.
I very much think they're going to have to back this down. It's not a good look for the administration to say they're targeting parents.
Such a move could also help tamp down some of the more heated school board meetings and perhaps encourage the political empowerment many parents are beginning to pursue.
For Leary and Murphy, the way forward includes getting students back to their normal routines, finding more ways to come together.
We're going to have to find some way where we just understand that there are things now beyond our control sometimes that we're just going to have to deal with. And they may not be fun. They may not be easy, but we're going to have to deal with them. And if we do deal with them in a united way, then it's only going to be better for our kids, our teachers, our school boards.
Heather Sells, CBN News.
A law used to punish and deter human rights violators, but it's set to expire. Coming up, we're going to show you both liberal and conservative lawmakers and what they're saying about how this is uniting to keep the law on the books. Religious persecution is rising around the globe, but the U.S. is seen as a leader in the fight to protect freedom for all people of faith. Well, next year, an important law used to punish and deter human rights violators is set to expire. As Jennifer Wishon now shows us, the quest to keep the law on the books is uniting even the most liberal and conservative lawmakers.
Working to stop abuses against Christians and the world's other religious minorities isn't easy. One tool that helps is the global Magnitsky Act, known as GLOMAG, which allows the U.S. to keep bad actors from enjoying many of the benefits of the West.
It's named for Sergei Magnitsky, a Ukrainian lawyer tortured and killed after exposing corruption at the Kremlin. Passed in 2012, the act is routinely used to punish these international wrongdoers, imposing asset freezes, visa bans, and restrictions on doing business with Americans.
Targeted sanctions can send a strong message of solidarity with victims and provide some accountability when judicial mechanisms fail.
Advocates say the Magnitsky list isn't one human and religious rights abusers want to be on.
We know it was one of the first issues mentioned during the summit between President Putin and Trump. We know that individuals do not want to get on that list. They don't want to be named and shamed.
In 2017, President Trump signed an executive order that goes even further, authorizing sanctions on any foreign person responsible or complicit in human rights abuses or corruption, a move even his biggest detractors applauded.
You know, most of the people who are listening here today probably know that I'm a very, very liberal Democrat. There were not many things that I agree with former President Trump on, but I did agree with his decision to issue Executive Order 13818.
Now, with GLOMAG set to expire next year, lawmakers want to make the Magnitsky Act permanent, incorporate President Trump's executive order, and expand it to other countries.
The bottom line is no oligarch, no crony should be able to escape sanctions because they're too big. We need to be able to act with unity in the international community to advance the protections of human dignity.
Last year, 8 senior Chinese officials were sanctioned under the act
for their direct participation in surveillance, mass detention, and forced labor of Uyghurs and other Turkic Muslims in the Uyghur region.
Still, the sanctions account for a small percentage of religious freedom violations occurring globally, something officials like Turkel want to see changed. GLOMAG sanctions were used to pressure Turkey to release Christian pastor Andrew Brunson, but the move also raised questions.
These sanctions against Turkish officials helped expedite his welcome release from arbitrary detention, but focusing on one victim and not including other similarly situated Turkish or American citizens who are also arbitrarily detained in Turkey's prisons, raised questions about the implementation of the sanctions program.
Working to advance and protect religious freedom is a priority for the U.S. for a very simple reason.
Those who violate religious freedom is just indicative of so many other abuses that occur in that country.
Religious freedom is a foundational pillar of any free and open society. Religious freedom stands as a basic human right, alongside freedom of the press, freedom of speech, and the right to petition one's government.
And as the expiration of GLOMAG gets closer, this bipartisan group of lawmakers and others are already working to make sure it gets expanded and made permanent. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
Coming up, a major restoration project. We're going to take you to the Tower of David Museum when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. I want to travel right now to the heart of Jerusalem to bring you 2 stories. First, we're going to take you to a popular destination in Jerusalem that has been working on a major restoration project. As Chris Mitchell now reports, the goal is to have it ready in time to welcome visitors from around the world back to the city.
The Tower of David Museum stands as a citadel, guarding the entrance to Jerusalem's old city. Some see it as one of the crown jewels of the city.
The only museum in the world that tells the full story of Jerusalem, 4,000 years of rich history. Inside this magnificent citadel of the city represent all the layers from the history of Jerusalem.
This week, the museum held a groundbreaking for a new pavilion and welcome center next to the Jaffa Gate. The Jaffa Gate serves as the main gateway into the old city of Jerusalem. With this new entrance and welcome center, the Tower of David Museum wants to increase the experience for millions of visitors to the most unique city in the world.
Visitors will be able to enter the citadel from the west, enjoy the archaeology and history, and exit through the original Ottoman gate of the citadel straight to the streets of the old city with the knowledge and experience from the Tower of David as the perfect introduction to Jerusalem.
The groundbreaking marked the halfway point of a multi-million-dollar restoration and conservation project. CBN News has chronicled this effort to modernize the museum, excavate ancient artifacts, and conserve treasures like this tower built by King Herod during the time of Jesus. Now the focus is the new Welcome Center. The construction presented a daunting engineering challenge. How do you dig down more than 50 feet next to a 500-year-old wall without making it collapse?
The engineering challenges were really unbelievable in its sensitivity and problematic, because we are building a building next to a very important wall of the citadel, which is 10 meters high, and we need to go 7-8 meters deep, and we need to make sure that nothing happens to this wall.
Kimmel shows how they met the challenge.
What you see now is a stage where we can sleep at night, because there is already a concrete wall. There are the metal beams that support and know that we are safe.
Alongside the engineering comes the archaeology, where many finds were examined in the laboratory.
It is once-in-a-generation opportunity to dig the citadel. The last excavations conducted in the late 1980s.
Notes and pictures from a British archaeologist more than 100 years ago helped guide Israeli archaeologists to find artifacts from Jerusalem's 3,000-year-old history, from Ottoman-era smoking pipes to the time of the First Temple. Those involved in the project feel a sense of history.
It's really one of the most exciting projects an architect can hope for, to work inside history and give a new, let's say, a new life to this history and make it accessible for everybody.
The completion of this project is expected by November 2022. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, the Tower of David Museum, the Old City of Jerusalem.
Just imagine trees sprouting from seeds 2,000 years old. Seems impossible, but it's not. In the middle of Israel's Arava Desert, botanists have taken ancient date palm seeds and nurtured them to life. And now those palms are bearing fruit. Here's Julie Stahl.
This little young-looking palm tree named Judith carries an ancient heritage.
We're talking about the resurrection of 2,000-year-old plus ancient date seeds that come from the Judean desert and from Masada, and which are part of a scientific experiment.
Growing in a greenhouse for the last 9 years, Judith was recently transplanted in what Kibbutz Keturah calls the ancient Judean date orchard. Journalists even pitched in to help. She's the 5th such tree to be planted there after Methuselah, Adam, Jonah, and Hannah.
We are planting our 2nd female date tree, who was sprouted from an ancient seed. Actually, this one came from Qumran, was found in the caves, and much to our astonishment, she also sprouted.
This is Hannah behind me, the first female tree. She was planted in 2019. Pollinated by Methuselah, last year she had around 100 dates. This year she had 621 dates, and this is part of one of them. Dr. Sarah Salone, a medical doctor, started this project more than 15 years ago after becoming interested in natural medicine.
I wanted to see how medicinal the flora of Israel was and what it had been used for and so on. And then I realized that many of these species had actually disappeared. And we know what there was because it's mentioned in the Bible. The Bible is our guidebook of ancient species.
One that disappeared centuries ago was the Judean date. The date is mentioned in the Bible as one of the 7 species found in the ancient land of Israel.
Now, we see dates all the way along here, palm trees, and all the kibbutzim are growing plants, and look at the plantations on Keturah. Those date palms of modern-day Israel are modern, and they were imported after the founding of the state in the 1950s, but they're not the original date tree that grew here.
Years ago at Masada, archaeologists found a jar of those ancient date seeds.
In ancient times, the classical writers described in detail the dates of ancient Judea. Why? Because they were famous. They were big, they were sweet, they were very dry, that allowed them to be exported all over the Roman Empire, and they had medicinal qualities.
Salone obtained 5 of those original seeds and gave them to botanist Dr. Elaine Salloway. After devising a method to sprout them, Salloway has succeeded in sprouting seeds found in other places, such as the Qumran caves where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found.
I think the biggest problem is hydrating them, because if you hydrate them too quickly, you kill them, and you only get 1 crack in each seed. So far, we have 5 males and 2 females, 7 altogether. And I've tried lots of seeds, and most of them are deader than doornails.
15 years ago, the first tree Salloway sprouted was a male. They called him Methuselah after the oldest person in the Bible. CBN News got its first look 10 years ago when Methuselah was still in the lab. There are currently around 856,000 date palms growing in Israel. Salloway planted some 3,000 of them on kibbutz Keturah, where each tree produces around 350 pounds of dates a year. And Salloway and Salone are hoping eventually to add the revived Judean dates to the harvest.
We are going to be testing those dates in the future to see actually what they do and whether they differ from other commercial varieties of modern dates. So for the kibbutz, it's a big venture.
Dr. Tariq Abu Hamid, director of the Arava Institute, sees this as planting seeds from the past to bear a special kind of needed fruit for the future.
If you don't look back to the history, you will not see the future. And here we're actually planting history at the Arava Institute. We hope one day that with these trees that came from 2,000 years ago will be the hope of peace in our region.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Kibbutz Keturah in the Arava Desert in southern Israel.
Bye-bye, everybody.